let's talk about, let's look at NATO. NATO's come out with a Christmas message. Well, there you have NATO. For those who don't know, NATO is the wannabe one world army. One world government needs a one world army. That's the point of NATO. Really shouldn't still exist. There's no need for it. Here we have NATO, nice Christmas cheery message with fighter jets, making you feel safe at Christmas. Hardly, because they're wanting to start World War III and very desperate, so desperate in fact. They just had Ukraine, which Ukraine doesn't do anything without their Western leaders dictating to it. Murder in a terrorist attack. One of the generals, top Russian general, outside his home with a bomb. This is the general, by the way, that exposed the biolabs, deadly, lethal viruses being made in Ukrainian labs to kill us.
Рост заболеваемости нехарактерными инфекциями отмечен в данный момент в ряде стран. И то есть тоже мы можем говорить о том, что это не без помощи американских биологов.
Я думаю, что вот так огульно заявлять, мы же все-таки должностные лица. Ведь биологическое оружие, если посчитать, какой ущерб нанес ковид, то, наверное, будем говорить, за 2 года, да?
Ну, основная такая пандемия 2 года шла.
То даже ее нельзя сравнить с ущербом, который был во Вторую мировую войну. Это в десятки раз больше. Зато выгодоприобретатели той же Big Pharma.
Вы имеете в виду фармацевтические все компании?
Компании, которые в основном находятся у нас там в Соединенных Штатах, это там колоссальные. Как-то вот так.
То есть вопрос
стоит.
Да.
Вопросы мы задаем. Мы же передаем документы. Вот характерна реакция Соединенных Штатов Америки, про которую мы говорим. Ни одного опровержения тем документам, которые мы предъявили, не было. Мы передали документы. Это более, наверное, 2000 листов в Организацию Объединенных Наций.
Какой ответ пришел?
У нас, как правило, 2 ответа. Один ответ происходит в Соединенных Штатах Америки. У них же он стандартный. Все, что не делается, все делается в интересах национальной безопасности Соединенных Штатов. И нам надо доверять.
Слепо доверять?
Да, слепо доверять. Там политика глобального биологического контроля. Они поняли, что это работает, что посредством искусственно создаваемых таких кризисных ситуаций биологического характера можно управлять миром. Ведь ничего бесплатно они не делают. И даже поставляя каким-то государствам на безвозмездной основе, она не такая безвозмездная, как они об этом говорят.
Well, there you have it. That's the Russian general that exposed the Ukrainian biolab, speaking, over a year ago, several years ago, about what he discovered, and of course, highlighting some truths there. And the West has had, it's now been implicated. Ukraine was involved in the assassination of that good man this week. That's very sad to see, but obviously the West wants World War III. And when we say the West, we're talking really about Israel. Israel's behind all these things, the globalists, and they won't stop until they get what they want unless they are stopped. The globalists also control the Federal Reserve. Elon Musk has appointed, not appointed, but Trump has Elon Musk and Ron Paul and they are going to be hopefully killing the Fed. But the Fed, Bitcoin hit, just on this, the Bitcoin hit 107,000 US this week, a record high, but then it dropped after this comment by the Fed chairman, Powell, Jerome Powell.
Assets that have been buoyant. Do you see any value or benefit in the U.S. government building a reserve of Bitcoin?
So, you know, we're not allowed to own Bitcoin. The Federal Reserve Act says what we can own, and we're not looking for a law change. That's the kind of thing for Congress to consider, but we are not looking for a law change at the Fed.
There you have Jerome Powell. He also admitted in recent times, we showed on the Australian National Review, McIntyre Report, that if Trump wanted to fire him, well, he doesn't have to listen to a president. It's because the Fed is not a federal agency. It's a fraud. It's owned by the Rothschilds, was set up by the Rothschilds. I highlighted in my book in 25 years ago. It's common knowledge these days, was just a wild conspiracy theory. And the Fed, Ron Paul, who was one of our first contributors in Australian National Review when we launched the newspaper 10 years ago, he's been an advocate to ending the Fed, and Elon Musk now is on board. So will they be able to end the Fed? Which is the cause of all our problems. You have inflation. Why even Malcolm Robertson was talking about there, why Australians paying so much for property and surviving, and not just in Australia but around the West, is because we're being raped and pillaged by the Fed. They print funny money, fake Jews who print fake money. That's the Rothschilds for you. They also founded Israel, control Israel, and control the foreign policy of the United States through the control of most of the politicians in the United States. And until people fully understand that, these problems aren't going to go away, which highlights a few things. Obviously, Netanyahu's in more trouble. Obviously, he was highlighting this some time ago. This is effectively the greater Israel project that he wants, and now it's becoming very obvious to people of how they're going about doing that. Jeffrey Sachs was on Tucker Carlson this week, highlighting very clearly that Syria, the downfall of Syria, was by Israel and the help of America. Israel controls American foreign policy. That he highlighted how General Wesley Clark was shocked, straight after September 11th when he was called into Pentagon, and they said, oh, by the way, we're going to be starting 7 wars in 5 years. What do you mean 7 wars in 5 years? Well, that's what they're doing. We're going to invade Iraq. Syria was meant to be next. So it was meant to happen 5 years ago. Syria, Yemen, Afghanistan, Lebanon, Libya, and I think Somalia. And if people knew more historical facts, they'd already planned the invasion of these countries months before September 11th. They'd also said, the neocons, Israelis, the controlling Bush administration at the time, we need another Pearl Harbor type event in order to get the American people to support our plans. And those plans were 7 wars in 5 years. So it's not like Israel wasn't behind Syria. Turkey copped a lot of the blame, but it wasn't Turkey. And even Putin said last night when he addressed answering his questions that Israel was the country that has benefited the most from the collapse of Syria. And of course, they're the ones that caused the collapse of Syria. Well, they used their ISIS proxy armies. Instead of sending their own army in, they created armies such as ISIS, Hamas, Al-Qaeda, and they place these terrorists within the nation, target nation. They start causing killing, fighting against the governments and killing the people. And then they go, oh, we've got to save the people. Let's move in and kill the terrorists. It's not really going after the terrorists because they created the terrorists. They're going after genociding the people and stealing the assets. It's a typical playbook by Israel, and they've invaded most of those countries. And just yesterday, they announced they're going to start attacking Yemen. So they weren't happy with Gaza, then Lebanon, and then invading Syria. 3 countries in the last month. They need a 4th one now. It's Yemen. They've already destroyed Libya. They destroyed Afghanistan until they were booted out of there. They destroyed Iraq until they were booted out of there. Syria was a prosperous nation before 2011, before Israel destroyed it. Which leads me to one last thing. I didn't ask this to Malcolm Roberts. He probably couldn't comment it. This is one of the reasons I think One Nation didn't do too well in the Queensland election. Pauline Hanson obviously has a lot of far-right supporters, right side of politics. She was put up with a publicity stunt earlier this year to wear the Israeli flag in Parliament. I think it was probably the most stupidest public publicity stunt any politician could do. She probably was told, left-wing people don't support you, so this will be fine. This will get you publicity. But I think that's a turning point in One Nation. One Nation before that was doing really well. I thought had a good chance of becoming a serious third-party threat. That one stunt probably ended it. Because once again, people don't realize half the right side of politics are awake. Israel is the problem. The other half, Christian Zionists, are still asleep. But there's a lot of people awake that might mention that they don't support Israel, that don't support Israel. And the one thing that could bring a lot of left voters across to supporting a party on center-right is if you stand up against Israel. So two politicians, including in Australia, tell Israel they're not welcome, and starts opposing that, then I don't think we're going to see political change. We're just going to be left, right, played between the two. That's my view. I could be wrong, but Israel is a problem that's not going to go away until we address that problem. And to address that problem, awareness is the first step to change. Well done to Candace Owens. She's just been voted the anti-Semite of the year. Well done, Candace, because it doesn't mean you're an anti-Semite, because 98% of Israelis are not Semites, and they're not from Israel, and they're not the chosen ones, and they're not. It's not. God never promised the land to them. The Rothschilds don't believe in God, yet they claim God promised them a land thousands of years ago, so it's theirs. And they claim they're Semites. They're not Semites. As we all know, they're from Eastern Europe, particularly from Eastern Ukraine, Southern Russia. They're Khazarians. It's probably why they want Ukraine back, and Russia's not going to give it to them. Russia is winning the war, and that's a good thing for people in the West. Russia is a traditional Christian nation, traditional values, and standing up for what the West used to represent. But anyhow, that's all for this show, folks. We'll be back with some more in 2025. God bless you wherever you are. Merry Christmas. Have a happy new year. I'll be back in the studio in early January to update you. January 20th is a critical date, Trump's inauguration. What the hell will happen before then? Will we see a fake alien invasion? God knows. Martial law lockdowns, bird flu pandemic. The globalists are just desperate to what can we throw at there? How can we keep power? God knows what they're going to try. Mass casualty event. Come on. They're running out of options. January 20th is coming. Until then, folks, take care. We'll see you in the new year.